One of the things that's incredibly important to the adult toy collector is reliability. We want to know that what we've ordered is what we're going to get, but more often it's about when we're shown something that it's actually going to ship. We spend a lot of time expecting toys, pre-ordering them, waiting for them, sending in wish lists, grouping around all of the reveals. In fact, that's why reveals are so important to fans, because essentially you're seeing what you'll be displaying on your shelf in the near future. And when toys get revealed, it's a big part of the hobby. So, what happens when toys are revealed but they don't actually ship? There's a lot of different cases of this. Back in the 80s, it used to be restricted to toy catalogs that companies would put out, and you would see figures that were being announced for retailers, but retailers didn't order them, so they never happened. Other times, toy companies, especially in more modern toy collecting, have shown toys publicly, trying to gauge interest. And when that doesn't happen, well, then it doesn't move forward, much like the Cookie Monster. So, is there a overarching rule or governing body overseeing legally what toy companies need to provide to produce when they reveal product? Well, the answer is, well, it's kind of a deep well or a long well. Well, it's a well. All right, see how I did that? All right, I know I've used this joke before. I really should be put in joke jail. The thing is, when figures are first shown, like Strobo here in Masters of the Universe Classic, they're often shown with even times more parts, more accessories than can be afforded. Now, when I was the brand manager, as a collector myself, I was very motivated to make sure anything that was shown was eventually released. So even if Strobo's gun, for example, didn't come with the single packed figure, well, we found a way to release that with one of the weapon packs. Fortunately, we had these in the line, which became a vehicle to release unreleased accessories. So not every line is blessed with something like this, but creative solutions can be found. Even the fact that Strobo came with an alternate head for Zodak behind you behind to the right there. So there can be creative ways of getting out items. But is there a law requiring this? Do toy companies have to ship you things that they show? Or are you just dependent on, crazy brand managers who do this? So sometimes, and the sometimes is usually when you have something like a Build-A-Figure. And the reason for that is when you don't have all the parts of a Build-A-Figure, you don't have the toy. You just have an unassembled dragon or robot or, large thing. So all of the pieces are necessary. It's kind of like a Lego set. If you ship a Lego set without all the pieces, then you can't complete the instructions. And that's really how this is looked at. It's looked at as a construction toy. Even though all of the pieces of the construction toy are packed with different SKUs and you're required to hunt and piece them together, that's irrelevant. But the point is that they're all available and that you can get all the pieces. So this was something that I ran into when I oversaw the Green Lantern movie toy line. We had a Build-A-Figure concept directly stolen from Marvel Legends, and well, I'm sure they probably picked it up from someone. No, they kind of invented it. All right, well, either way, flattery is the best imitation, or maybe reverse that. So every figure in the Green Lantern line came with a blob of yellow goo, which was supposed to represent one of the tentacles of the final monster, which is Parallax. Granted, these didn't look as nice as maybe, arms and legs that are recognizable, but the idea was you'd be able to build up to this giant yellow shadow monster who we kept getting changing reference to all the way up until Toolet. All right, well, we know Green Lantern was a runaway success, and because of that, retailers pulled out on their orders. And that meant in order to get all the pieces of Parallax out there, we had to do a special SKU and essentially jam in all of the remaining pieces because otherwise fans wouldn't be able to assemble the full figure that had been advertised since Wave 1. We'd been expecting the movie to really be a multi-year, franchise, so had to rush that out. So yes, you are legally obligated to put out all the pieces of a puzzle, essentially. So by showing Parallax and showing the full Build-A-Figure or Collect and Connect TM and copyright that you could make, much like a Katuba or a hollow chip, it's a legally binding contract. So you have to there are some exceptions, of course. There's always going to be, but if you have to assemble a toy, all the pieces have to be available. Now let's look at an interesting sort of exception, or rather something that elaborates on this, the Art Asylum Star Trek Enterprise line. I loved the storyline mostly because I loved Enterprise. It was my favorite Star Trek iteration. I know it's kind of the black sheep for many people, but hey, I loved it. Maybe that was because of, T'Pol and those, sexy, sexy Vulcan eyes. Ah, if only Spock could have been female. All right. So one of the deluxe SKUs in this assortment was pairing an existing figure with a chunk of the bridge of the control center for the ship. For those of you who are not Star Trekians, Trekarians. I don't know, they're always changing their names. All right. So yeah. So you get Captain Archer, his chair, and a chunk of the floor. Now this actually just works as a toy, right? It could just be Deluxe Captain Archer. The same with T'Pol. She can just sit at her science station there, and you get T'Pol, and you get something, a sort of mini environment display stand for her, is really what this is. So as the line continued, and there were multiple SKUs, so then, we get the weapons station with Reed, and again, it's just basically a elaborate display stand. It happens to include a chair. The last SKU was meant to be Merryweather and the controller, the helms. He's the helmsman, so I guess the helm controls. This SKU never shipped. It was shown. It was shown as being part of the overall bridge, but it never made it to market because the line, again, much like Green Lantern the movie, the Enterprise show didn't do as well, as the toys were scaled back. Retailers pulled back, so you never got your Mayweather figure. The thing is, though, he's not needed to enjoy the display stands. Yes, you're missing, his section, but without his section, you don't lose any play value. It's not like that giant dragon or parallax where not having a piece means you can't, like the dragon didn't have a leg, he would topple over. The rest of the Enterprise bridge works perfectly fine as a, bridge background without the center console. You don't have to have it. It's awesome. It's nice. And that's why, unlike a Build-A-Figure, a Build-A-Set, if you will, is not required to ship all the pieces unless it's a piece that structurally holds it together, like it's going to fall apart, or maybe there's a ladder connecting two areas. If the toy is a puzzle, you have to ship all the pieces. It's basically as simple as that. Anything else that's shown, there is absolutely no legal obligation to ship it. Sometimes you get companies that are very determined to get things out, and there have been some really creative ways this has been done by, a ton of toy companies. But more often, the toys are just moved on because it's just easier than going backwards, in a sense. So one example is Darth Raven, who was meant to be released, or re-released, shall we say, in the Vintage Collection on one of those cool, old-looking Star Wars cards with photos, even though he, wasn't actually in live-action entertainment. I guess they'll use a photo from the video game. That's not important. The point is, he was shown at Comic-Con and shown as being one of the numbered Vintage Collection figures, and I've heard confirmed from multiple independent sources that Hasbro just forgot. There was a switchover in the brand team, and this is one of the sort of major pins in the entire toy industry, is that brand managers for all brands, retail, online, kid, adult, everything, they switch all the time, usually every year to 2 years, which means someone isn't usually on a brand long enough to see what they worked on become a success. They spend half their time cleaning up the mess of the previous person. So, for example, without these figures, the Vintage Collection was now out of order, and there were missing numbers. A future brand manager came along and did fix this by taking 2 toy exclusive figures and giving them the missing numbers. So again, a very creative way of making that up. They made up the number system without having to release the figure. Here's another example, Marvel Legends Wave 1, Toy Biz, 20 years ago. So you got some A-list Marvel characters, Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man, and then you have Toad. So yes, not even an A-list X-Men villain. I mean, if Magneto was in there, you might not flinch. Is there anyone else that you wouldn't flinch? Maybe Apocalypse? I don't know. But, for their premiere wave, Spider-Man had already been out in the Spider-Man Classic series that predated this. And then Marvel Legends proper, you got the main characters, Captain America, Iron Man, and Hulk. Now, this had come out right after the X-Men movie, the first movie, and, well, it was a big success. Lots of variants of characters, lots of reboxing of characters, and, you have to be creative when you're coming up with new executions, especially for customized items, for retailers, exclusives. And one of those was a mutant evolution pack that would pair a movie figure with a comic book styled figure. Well, there was supposed to be a Toad movie and comic figure, but much like a lot of times we've talked about in this video, the line only made it to one SKU. The next SKU was developed, in fact, it was tooled. So the $100,000 it takes to tool a fully unique figure was spent on this Toad. And now, without linking him to the movie figure as part of this two-pack program, Hasbro's, or actually no, I'm sorry, Toy Biz is sitting on a very expensive paid-for tool needing a way to release him. So the solution, the creative solution is, well, we have a new all Marvel line, and this was when X-Men were still part of it before they got taken out of it and then got put back into it again. That's a whole other YouTube video. I should really do a video on that. So yes, you wind up with a very C or D list X-Men villain in the first wave. So looking ahead, and I'm going to use some Motu images because it's my favorite brand, and I work on it professionally. What can I say? I love He-Man. We've seen a lot of reveals, and it's really exciting to see how much has been shown. But, and this goes for any brand, I'm just using Motu as an example because there's just been so many recent reveals, there's no guarantee any of these toys are ever coming out. I mean, I'm not saying they're not, but I'm just saying this. I'm just using this as an example. This could be any brand: Star Wars, Transformers, G.I. Joe. Toys that are shown, there is never a guarantee. But we need a hero. We need this hero. We need this hero sold at mass retail. It's so important to get this character mass retail. He's never been at retail, so I'm so excited. So I have faith all this is coming. I just want to use this as an example because there is no legal obligation to release anything unless it's a piece of a puzzle and the toy requires it to be released. I hope this video was enlightening and shed some information, or shared some light. I don't know. Share this video if you liked it. I hope you liked it. And subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff. It helps the algorithm, and YouTube appreciates it, and I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comment section.